Welcome to eAssist Growing Your Dental Business podcast. Tune in as the experts in dental business share tips and tools to grow your practice. To learn more, visit dentalbilling.com. Please welcome our next guest.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Growing Your Dental Business podcast. Today, we are going to dive deep into the world of dental efficiency with my good friend, Kay Hickey. Welcome, Kay.
Hi, so nice to be with you again, Jacqueline.
Oh, it's fun to have you here always. Anytime I get a chat with you, it's delightful. So thank you for being here. I want to just tell you guys, our listeners, a little bit about Kay. You know, she's been in the dental industry for 30 years as a licensed dental assistant. She's been an instructor, and currently she's a clinical efficiency consultant. Her passion is helping dental teams streamline their workflow processes to create an efficient, safe, and happy practice. She focuses on the cost of clinical disorganization, which I feel like that's a huge piece right there. It can cost a lot to be disorganized, and and then the negative impact that it has on the practice's overall success. But most importantly, she creates solutions to create lean inventory management systems to save time and money and increase profitability. And the one thing that I love about Kay, and if you know anything about me, I love kids, but she's authored 4 children's dental books and has several articles for various dental publications. And tell me again what your 4 books are about, Kay. I love that.
Oh my gosh, I wrote them quite a while ago, and it's about a little crocodile named Conroy. And there's 4 books in the series, and basically it takes the children through the 4 kind of milestones of their dental health, such as learning how to brush and floss, the first visit to the dentist, losing that first tooth, and then of course, getting dental sealants. So those were kind of the 4 main things. And I wrote this when I was a dental assistant in clinic, and my son was pretty young. So he was my audience for a lot of this. And he really liked them until I had to read them so many times that I think he was getting a little tired of me too. But they've been really fun. They've been really fun to have. And they're in a lot of dental practices right now, which makes me feel very proud.
Oh, I love that. Well, your son probably has very good oral hygiene because he learned at a very young age.
But whether he liked it or not,
That's
yes.
Great. So we're going to jump into our discussion today. Kay has a lot of insights on helping you with streamlining your operations, reducing stress, and also boosting your bottom line. So let's dive in. So when you work with dental teams, Kay, what have you found are the most frequent pain points that they face?
So there's so many challenges right now in dental practices. Some of it have nothing to do with clinical organization and efficiency. But, you know, if I were to kind of give you a list of what I'm seeing, it's a lot of inefficiencies. Even in organized practices, we are still seeing these pain points and frustrations coming up of interrupted procedures and whatnot, because they're organized, but they're not necessarily working efficiently. So that's one. Just this disorganization of clutter. We have so much stuff in dentistry, and it's just stored everywhere, and it just kind of builds up a lot of clutter. Our sterilization center gets to be a dropping zone, and pretty soon we have kind of this chaos amongst us. Other things that I see is just a lot of team stress and burnout. You know, we have this thing called silent stress, I think, in dentistry, where we're constantly watching the clock. We're constantly thinking about what's coming next. We're worrying about, am I going to have time to get that bleach tray ready? And we're getting, you know, added appointments into our schedule. And if we don't have good processes in place, the silent stress can really build up and cause a lot of anxiety, distraction, and burnout. So that's one thing that I really feel is important for teams to really recognize and address. We sometimes think that that's just part of doing dentistry. I know I did. It was just another day in a dental day, right? The stress that we put up with a smile on our face. But there is a better way to manage it. Some other things that aren't directly related, you know, to what I really am an expert in is staff shortages. However, we do have we do help that team get through those staff shortages by helping them be more efficient. We have devices, evacuation and isolation devices that are hands-free. So if that doctor doesn't have an assistant, they can do that. So team shortages, and then making sure that the team is really being compliant and safe in their work practices on when they're handling dirty instruments. That's another thing that I'm really seeing when we go into practices that is kind of getting overlooked sometimes. Then I want to share with you, I read a recent report in the ADA HPI, and this comes along with the challenges, and that's why I pulled it out, because that's what I talk on so frequently. But this report stated that more and more general dental practices are suffering with that bottom line feeling crunched. They're feeling the stress that they're working harder and not making as much money as what they used to be. And you can only raise your prices so high. And the reason that they feel that they're feeling this crunch on that bottom line is because we're having an increase in supply cost. We have increased in salaries over the last few years. Salaries for your teams have just boomed. And then, as Jacqueline might be more familiar with, it's really poor insurance reimbursement. You know, those cuts that the dentists have to take with insurances are really impactful on that bottom line as well. So this report went on to say, which really resonated with me, they said dental teams have to get creative in finding ways to cut cost, save money, and implement systems that are going to help teams work more efficiently. And I'm like, that's us. That's what we do. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So you're with Zirk, which is a dental. Tell us a little bit about Zirk, because that's the organization you're with, right?
Yeah, so we are Zirk Dental Products. We're located in Buffalo, Minnesota. That's we're headquartered here. We do all our manufacturing, marketing, everything is right here in Minnesota. And I'm proud to say that everything's made right here in the USA, but we ship worldwide. And this is a family-owned company that's been around for, I should have looked this up. It's almost 60 years, I want to say. It's just under 60 years, perhaps.
Yeah.
And it's just a really fun group of people to work with. You know, we're a smaller company that has a pretty large impact, I like to say.
I love that. I love
Yeah,
that. Well,
yeah.
it sounds to me like you help a lot of small issues in the practice that really can affect the larger practice goals, like that profitability and team morale. So let's talk a little bit about some of the solutions that you have or offer or recommend to these practices if they are finding themselves, let's say, short-staffed. Let's say they're feeling like they're not as organized as they could be. Maybe they lost like their dental assistant, or maybe they, I just feel like with listening to you as you were talking about the organization in a dental practice and the stress that can be created there, it's kind of like you're home away from home. I'm thinking, oh yeah, I have a clutter section at my house. I could probably clean out, I could probably get more organized here. And I feel like it's kind of like a home away from home, the dental practice is, because a lot of people might even be there longer than they are at home. So I can see how
absolutely.
Yeah, I can see how, you can get somewhat disorganized, especially if you get busy and you are short-staffed. So let's talk about some of those solutions.
I would love, first I want to tell you just a little bit more of a few things that I'm hearing. So the solutions have a little bit more of an impact when you're hearing them.
Oh,
just
sure.
Just a couple of quick little stories. Because I talk to practices every day and they're calling for a reason. Sometimes they don't know what the issue is. And so I always, tell me what's going right. What do you love? And then we get into, so what can I help you with today? And I had one dentist just say, hey, I want to stop yelling at my team. And I wanted to say, oh, well, then please stop yelling at your team. But, he just sounded so distraught. He obviously didn't enjoy that frustration that he was experiencing, and that he knew that he was being hard on his team and that they were probably trying their hardest but didn't know any better. And so that's, I thought, really impactful on really what these teams are feeling. But I just want to quickly run through the top 3 pain points that I generally hear. There's a whole laundry list of them, but I'm not going to go into all of that. The number 1 pain point I hear, and hopefully your audience that's listening in will be able to have, resonate with this, but it's stopping a procedure to go find something that's missing. That's the number 1 thing I hear. And the reason that is such a problem is it stops that procedure in its tracks. We've got the doctor in the chair, the patient's in the chair, maybe a mouthful of cotton rolls, and the assistant has to stop, deglove, and go find something that's missing. Every time we do that in dentistry, we're wasting about 3 to 5 minutes of time. When you think about the gloves, the hand washing and going to find it and coming back. And so it's frustrating for everybody involved, including the patient. And number one, we want to give that patient top-notch experience every time they come into the practice. And that just doesn't sit well with them, right? The second thing that I hear most frequently is having lost items. Think, I can't find my etch, I can't find my impression material, it's missing, and pretty soon it's expired. And when you finally have time to clean it out, you find all sorts of the product that has been pushed aside or buried, and now you're finding it and part of it is expired. I went into a practice, I was there for maybe 10, 15 minutes, and I found a big basket full of that impression material. It had all sorts of different bite registration, impression materials, mixing tips, everything in a big basket. And I started going through it, and I found over 14 cartridges that had expired. I went back to the office and did the math. It was over $800 in expired materials that I threw away. And that's the kind of thing that just goes on through the course of days that we go in and help practices. We see it all the time. And it's a shame. It's just throwing money out of the window. And then finally, I hear a lot of it takes too long for room turnover. And it's because of this having so many procedures, which require so many materials and instruments. And we start to feel like we're running out of places to put things. And you're running to multiple areas to get what you need for each procedure. A doctor I was talking to said, I had to go in on a weekend to see an emergency patient, and it took me longer to find what I needed than it did to set up or did to actually perform that whole procedure.
Wow.
And so these are just some quick little stories I wanted to share, just because if your audience is feeling any of these things, you're in good company. You're in very good company. And the good news, there is a solution, which is what Jacqueline was hoping that I would answer.
That's great. We're going to get to that. No, I love that. I love hearing those stories because I feel like, I don't know, I've seen organized dentists and I've seen not so organized practices where, just as a patient, you go and you see, when you can see the organization or feel the organization or feel the camaraderie that you feel when you're there as a patient. So it's important to be organized. I'm sure that doctor, his patient who was waiting for him to do that procedure or that emergency procedure on the weekend was like, okay, what's taking so long to get, all the stuff.
Exactly. And, that patient perception, just watching us as a team, running down the halls to go find something, leaving the room, running behind schedule, looking and feeling, they can sense if we're frustrated, even though we put that smile on our face, they can sense our stress. And we want to make this as comfortable and as Sharon says we can. So Zerk does have solutions. I mean, we have multiple ways that we can help. Number one, we really specialize in products that help in efficiency. And so our main lines are, we have some really great Crystal HD mirrors. They're super bright mirrors with a lightweight handle, ergonomic, friendly. Isolation devices. If you're short-staffed or if you want to just work a little bit more efficiently at chairside, give your assistant, for example, a chance to get caught up with reprocessing or lab work. We have devices that can allow high volume, hands-free evacuation. So the doctor can work alone or the hygienist can work alone in a pinch and still have high volume evacuation. So those are some things. We have a whole line of isolation devices, but things like that are really helpful in efficiencies. But the one I want to focus on a little bit more today is our color method, which is an efficiency system, like Jacqueline, you said in the introduction today, that's really going to help streamline those workflow processes.
Yeah.
A lot of the problems behind the issues that I was talking about, those frustrations, is because teams do not have good clinical systems in place. And we know that it's all about systems. Systems work if we implement them properly. And just like you have systems when you're helping your admin team understand how your billing processes work and what their steps are, and then the steps that get taken electronically with your experts at your end. Those systems are so important, and each step has to really make sense. So the systems that are in place, they need to be intentional, they need to be easy to use, And they need to be, for clinical side of it, we need to create like grab and go efficiency. So getting everything we need in a hurry to be able to get that room turned over quickly and efficiently. Our color method really is based on a set of principles. So the first one is color. We color code by procedure. There's a lot of different ways of color coding, and in our experience and expertise, we found color coding by procedure is by far the most effective. Now you can go by provider too. If you've got multiple providers in the practice, your procedure could be one color, your provider could be another, but we won't get into all the weeds on that. The second principle is storage optimization. Where is everything going to live? Where is it stored? What makes the most sense? And how does it flow through the practice? The third one is instrument management. We highly recommend, just like the CDC and OSHA, utilizing a cassette for your instrument storage. Not only is it the safest way to practice because you don't have all those touch points with dirty instruments, it's also the most efficient because those instruments stay in the cassette all the way through the entire reprocessing, and you're not sorting out a pile of loose, dirty instruments to get them in the right setup. And then the last one is, how are we managing our materials? Inventory management is key. And this is where this system really kicks into place, because if we have lean inventory management systems in place, we are going to reduce the amount of inventory that we need to have on hand. And we do that by incorporating procedure tubs versus keeping everything in the treatment room in the drawers. This tub now becomes your portable drawer that you can carry from room to room and not have to stock 4 treatment rooms with all the same identical materials. Now you're going to reduce that to maybe 1 or 2 tubs. So we're saving on inventory management as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
I love it. So I would assume that you have set this up in practices that they were probably somewhat disorganized. You came in, you helped them organize this color method. And what is your feedback that you've received from some of those teams that you've helped with?
Oh my gosh, it's been really, really amazing. And I'll tell you, when we have several different consulting services that we can do virtually. They can self-implement while we help them here on our end, just with design. But when we go into practices and actually go through the motion with them, I mean, we are getting into the nitty-gritty. We're pulling everything out of sterilization, everything out of the storage room, everything out of the treatment rooms. We're going through it all, cleaning it up. And by noon, it looks like a tornado went through, and it's a little overwhelming. And then by 4 or 5 o'clock, it's beautifully organized in place. And it's really shocking and surprising to the team on what a difference it makes. And there is a learning curve. At the end of the day, we go through and we teach them, this is how it's going to work. This is where everything is going to be stored. Here's the workflow processes from room setup to sterilization and everything in between. So that is a really fun experience. But even those that self-implement, I always go back 2 or 3 months later to see how things are going. We want to make sure it's sustainable, and they're really loving it. I had one dentist tell me that he met with his accountant, and he said, this accountant specializes in dental offices in that general area that he's from. And he said his accountant noticed that he's spending about 20% less in supplies than the average dentist in that area. Wow. So that was a huge thrill for him, as you can imagine.
For sure, for sure.
Yeah.
Are you finding that teams are compliant? Like, do they pick up the new system pretty easily, or does it take a little bit of a learning curve for them?
Now that we've really perfected what we do, I'll be completely upfront with you. The first, we call it a reset, what I did, it was really tough because I didn't exactly realize what I was walking into. So I didn't have a great game plan in place. This was several years ago. And that was a tougher experience to teach that team, but eventually we got there. We got there, and it was after I was gone that we worked a lot virtually to really kind of make sure that everybody was on track. But through the course of these many years that we've been doing this, we've really got it perfected. So when we leave, we can feel really good that they know exactly what to do come the morning when they open up. And like I said, we do touch base with them. If they have any hiccups, we make sure that they write them down and get in touch with us to make sure that we can solve that issue. Maybe they've had a change in materials or instruments that they're not sure how to recreate their procedure tubs. So it's been really great. The other thing that we do a lot of is have our customers that are implementing it do case studies for us. And we'll have them collect data for a couple of weeks prior to us coming in to implement the entire system. We teach them, and then we give them a few days to get used to it, because there's always a learning curve, like you said, Jacqueline.
Yeah.
And once they feel comfortable, it usually takes maybe 2 or 3 days. Then we have them collect that same data. And I'm going to actually read this so I don't goof it up. Excuse me, I'm going to take a look at my note here. So this happens to be a case study that was done through a large DSO. It was Mortensen out of, I believe they were in Oklahoma, if I remember correctly. But their case study shows at the end, they found that they were leaving the treatment room 95% less times. Wow. So what we had them do, it was not rocket science. Every time you have to leave, make a little hash mark on a Post-it note, tally it up at the end of the day, and
so
had them
they were
documented.
actually counting the times that they had
Right. So that's the highest number I've ever gotten on that, but it's generally right around that 80, 85, 90% area. So it's really a big deal on that. Remember, I said 3 minutes saved or 3 minutes wasted every time you leave the treatment room. So that really adds up. 45% less time sorting, pouching, and loading the autoclave. And that's because we recommend cassettes. So if you're already using cassettes, you've already got that handled for the most part, right? Yeah. But the cassettes are going to make a big difference in efficiency. And then 69% less time restocking treatment rooms. And that's because we're not stocking the drawers anymore with all of our procedure-specific materials. We're getting them into procedure tubs. So that process is going to be a lot more timely and efficient.
I love that. That's great feedback. I feel like efficiency, I'm sure the team is happier. They probably feel like I don't know. I know when I'm in a cleaner environment, I'm much happier. You just have a lighter step in your, in your daily routine, I feel like, because it's just so much better. The morale probably is a lot better too.
Oh my gosh, for sure. I mean, this really reduces the amount of stress and helps team culture out quite a bit, because when you don't have all these frustrations and we're not blaming one another on you didn't order this or you didn't put this away or you forgot to restock that. I mean, it really helps. And for anybody that's non-clinical, I like to compare it to coming home to a messy kitchen.
Yeah. Yeah.
I travel a fair amount for work, and coming home after a few days being gone, and if that kitchen's a mess, I just want to turn around and run away again. But a side note, my husband has gotten much better about that.
I'm not going to say anything.
Yeah, that's good. He's probably not listening anyway.
That's great. Well, I feel like we've talked about a lot of things today. Not just organization and how organization can help the cost in your practice, but also team cohesiveness, a better environment for patients. I feel like it's a lot better environment for patients.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you'd like to touch base on before we end today?
You know, one thing I would like to invite your listeners to do is I know that I went through this pretty quickly. If you have any questions or want any more information, I would love for you to contact me personally. We have other consultants here at Zirk, but just give me a call. I'll give you my telephone number. It is 763-251-3029. Or you can email at kay@zirk.com, or simply go to our website, zirk.com/color method, and you can learn a lot more right on that website. But I would love to hear from you.
I love that. That would be awesome. I think we probably have a lot of listeners today who are thinking, I can relate to the doctor who probably took longer to find his instruments than he did to actually do the procedure.
Right.
So it might be a good thing. So I'm hoping that they'll reach out to you. Thank you, Kay, again, for being here.
Yeah. So please, as my takeaway, I would just love to have that discovery call with you. We can just spend a quick 15 minutes just to learn a little bit more. And if our synergies align and you want to move forward, we can talk about next steps.
That sounds great. I think that pre-discovery call would be amazing, just to see if you're a good fit for practice.
Absolutely. It's just a little Q&A and a little brief overview. And it's really a nice way for me to get to know the practice and some of the issues that they're having. And really, if I can give them some actionable solutions right away, that would be great.
That sounds amazing. Thank you again for sharing all of your expertise and getting organized and some of those tips and tricks that you can help dental practices with. You know, this podcast is sponsored by eAssist Dental Solutions, and as we talked a little bit about strategies in streamlining the clinical side, eAssist tries to help you streamline your administrative side. We're both into calming the chaos, trying to help you make sure you have a better patient flow for your patients. That's the bottom line, is to take care of patients. So whether
100%.
Yeah, it is. So if you're looking for a third-party dental billing company or interested in even having eAssist reach out as well in giving you kind of a quote on what it would be to have them, do all of your insurance claims, process your claims, follow up on your aging, they would love to hear from you too at dentalbilling.com. So I feel like Kay and I are aligned with what we're doing in our businesses, and I really appreciate that. Thank you again for joining the Growing Your Dental Business podcast. I love that you're here today, and everyone have a great rest of your week.
Thank you.
The purpose of this podcast is to interview the consultants within our eAssist Consultant Network. This podcast is for informational purposes only. For more details, please visit the homepage of this podcast platform at dentalbilling.com. Thanks for listening.